My name is Rachel Odom. I'm 29 years old and I work as a registered nurse at a trauma center in Austin, Texas. I've been here for 6 years, long enough to know that the worst moments of people's lives happen in rooms that smell like antiseptic and fluorescent light. I've held hands with strangers while they got the worst news of their lives. I've learned to keep steady when everything around me is falling apart. I thought that skill was just for work. I didn't know I'd need it at my own family's Christmas dinner. That night, my brother's wife handed me an envelope wrapped in red foil and a gold bow. She smiled when she gave it to me. Everyone was watching. And when I opened it, what was inside wasn't a gift card or a holiday card. It was a collection notice. My brother owed $340,000 to a private lender, money he'd borrowed using our late grandmother's property as collateral without anyone's knowledge. My dad looked me dead in the eye and said, "You're going to handle this." I told him no. He picked up his glass of eggnog and threw it in my face. I want to back up, because I think you need to understand who these people are before you understand what they did. I grew up in Corpus Christi. My parents still live there, in the same house they've had since before I was born. Yellow siding, a cracked driveway, a fig tree in the backyard that never actually produced any figs. My brother Kevin is 4 years older than me. Growing up, he was the kind of person every room bent toward, funny in a way that made adults forget their manners, charming enough that teachers gave him extra time on tests he hadn't studied for. My parents loved him in the uncomplicated way you love something that's never given you trouble. And I was the other one, the one who studied, who worked weekends at a diner, who went to nursing school on loans I paid off myself while Kevin was still asking for rent money at 32. I hadn't been home in almost 2 years, not since the previous Thanksgiving, when Kevin announced at the dinner table that he was getting into real estate development, and my mom responded by suggesting I could pitch in to help fund his first deal. I'd laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I drove home to Austin that same night. This December, I almost didn't go back. I'd made plans with my friend group here, a friendsmas thing, low-key, no obligation. But my mom called on a Tuesday evening while I was doing laundry, and she cried. Not loud crying, that quiet, defeated kind that my mom does when she really wants something. She said Kevin was struggling. She said she missed me. She said the holidays felt hollow without me there. I sat on the edge of my bed with wet socks in my hand, and I thought about the fig tree, about rolling out her sugar cookie dough with her as a kid, about wanting, the way you always want with family, for things to be different than they are. I canceled my friendsmas. I bought a tank of gas and drove 4 hours south. The house looked the same. My mom met me at the door before I even had my bag out of the trunk, arms open, hair freshly set, wearing the Christmas sweater I'd sent her 2 years ago. She smelled like cinnamon and dryer sheets. For about 30 seconds, I let myself believe this was going to be fine. Kevin and his wife were already inside. His wife, I'll call her my sister-in-law, had been with him for 3 years. She worked at a regional credit union in their loans department. She was always pleasant enough in a surface-level way, always asking about my job with a smile that felt like it was measuring something. Kevin hugged me the way he hugs everyone, too hard and too brief, like it's a performance. He looked tired, not sick tired, more like stress tired, the kind that lives behind the eyes. We sat down to dinner. Hot roast, mashed potatoes, the green bean casserole from the can, because that's the only one my dad will eat. My mom had made her Christmas bread, the braided kind with cranberries and orange zest. It was exactly the dinner I'd grown up with, and I was starting to relax, the tension in my shoulders coming down a little, when I noticed the questions. They asked about my apartment. My mom asked if I'd upgraded, how much I was paying in rent, whether I was still in the same complex or somewhere new. My dad asked about my 401k, which he'd never once asked about in his life. My sister-in-law asked whether I was still maxing out my HSA. I told her I wasn't sure why she'd know what an HSA was given that she worked in auto loans. And she laughed it off, but her eyes didn't move. Kevin talked more than he ate. He had a new project, he said, commercial real estate, a strip mall outside San Antonio, that was going to throw off serious cash flow. He used phrases I recognized from podcasts he clearly hadn't finished listening to. He said the numbers were solid. He said he just needed to get through this rough patch. My mom kept touching his arm when he talked, like she was steadying him. I excused myself to use the bathroom and stood at the sink for a moment longer than I needed to. Something felt off. The way you know a patient's going to code before the monitor shows it. Just a shift in the air. After dinner, we moved into the living room. My mom had the tree up, old ornaments I recognized from childhood. The clay handprint ones we made in second grade, a ceramic Santa missing one boot. She handed out gifts to everyone. Kevin and my sister-in-law gave me a candle set. I gave her the cashmere cardigan I'd ordered 3 weeks ago. Then my sister-in-law picked up a small envelope from behind the tree. Red foil, gold bow. She walked it over to me with both hands, like it was something precious. "This one's a little different," she said, and smiled. I should have known then. I almost did. I pulled the bow off. Slid my finger under the seal. Inside was a folded set of papers, official letterhead, columns of numbers, a bold dollar figure at the top. $1,340,000. A private lending company out of Houston. A notice of default, dated 6 weeks earlier. The collateral listed was my grandmother's property, a small plot of land in Aransas County that my grandmother had left to the family before she died. That Kevin and I were technically both listed on as heirs. He had used my name on the asset disclosure without my knowledge or signature. He had borrowed against land that was partly mine, and now the debt was in default. I looked up. Everyone was watching me. "What is this?" I asked. My voice came out very flat. Nurses learn that voice. It's the one we use when we're keeping ourselves together. My dad leaned forward, hands on his knees. "The business didn't work out," he said, like that explained everything. "We need you to cover it." I looked at Kevin. He was looking at the fireplace. "Kevin," I said, "look at me." He looked at me. He looked at me. His jaw was tight. He didn't say anything. "You listed Grandma's property as collateral," I said. "I'm on that deed. Did you use my name?" My sister-in-law cut in. Her voice was so calm it made me feel like I was the one being unreasonable. "You're in a strong financial position, Rachel. You've been contributing to your retirement accounts. You've got savings. Your rent is manageable for your income. This is something you can absorb." The word absorb? How do you know any of that? I asked her. She didn't answer. But the pause was its own answer. "You accessed my accounts," I said. Not a question. "I work in lending," she said. "I have access to tools." "You are a loans officer at a credit union," I said. "You have access to tools for customers of that credit union." "I am not your customer. I have never done business with your institution." Her smile stayed on but went tight around the edges. My mom put her hand on my arm. "Sweetheart," she said. "This is family. We're asking you because you're the only one who can." "You asked me," I said, "by hiding it inside a Christmas present. We didn't want it to be a whole thing. It's a $340,000 debt that has my name attached to collateral I didn't agree to. It is a whole thing." My dad stood up. He's a big man, my dad. Not threatening usually, just large. But he stood up with that kind of energy that takes up space. "You're going to sit there and tell me you won't help your own brother?" he said. "You've got the money. You've been sitting on it. You think that's yours to keep while he loses everything?" "It is mine to keep," I said. "I worked for it." "He's your blood." "He committed fraud," I said. "He used my name on a loan without my consent. That's fraud." That word, fraud, changed the temperature in the room. Kevin flinched. My sister-in-law's composure cracked for just a second before she reassembled it. My mom made a sound like I'd hit her. My dad grabbed his glass from the coffee table. Eggnog, thick and pale, the kind with actual cream. And he threw it at me. Not a controlled throw, a furious, ugly, I don't know what I'm doing throw that splashed across my face and the front of my sweater and dripped onto my mom's carpet. I sat there with dairy dripping from my chin. "Get out," my mom said. Her voice had gone very quiet. "If you won't help your brother, then get out of my house." Kevin still wasn't looking at me. My sister-in-law had her arms crossed. My dad was standing there breathing hard, looking at the carpet like he was surprised by what he'd done. I wiped my face with the back of my hand. "You planned this?" I said. My voice still did not shake. I'm proud of that, still. "You planned the whole dinner. The questions about my money. The gift. All of it. This was the plan." Nobody said anything. I stood up. I went to the hallway, got my coat and my bag. My mom didn't follow me. My dad had sat back down. Kevin said my name once, quietly, and I didn't stop. The night air outside was cold and sharp. I got in my car and sat there for a minute in the dark with my hands on the wheel. Then I drove to a Whataburger 10 minutes away, sat in the parking lot, and let myself feel it all. The betrayal, the humiliation, the specific grief of realizing you've been used by the people who are supposed to love you the most. I cried for a little while. Then I ate a burger because I hadn't eaten much dinner. While I was still in that parking lot, my phone buzzed. It was my aunt, my mom's older sister, who hadn't been at dinner. She and my mom were close but had their own complicated history, and she'd always had a soft spot for me. She asked if I was okay. She'd heard from my uncle who'd gotten a call from Kevin, apparently trying to get family members to pressure me. In that call, Kevin had said more than he meant to. He told my uncle the loan wasn't from a business deal. He'd been gambling, sports betting, mostly, but also 2 trips to a casino in Lake Charles, Louisiana. He'd gotten in deep and taken a private loan to cover what he'd already lost, then lost more. The real estate project was a story he'd constructed. The $340,000 was pure gambling debt. He'd also told my uncle that my sister-in-law had pulled my financial information through a system at work, not a credit union system, but a third-party data aggregator that the credit union used for underwriting, which she had credentials to access. She'd use these credentials to look up my savings, my retirement accounts, my investment balances, without my consent, without any business purpose. Just to see what I had. I sat in that Whataburger parking lot and read my aunt's texts and felt something settle in me, not anger. I was past the acute stage of anger. Just clarity. Absolute surgical clarity. I drove back to Austin, not to Corpus Christi. Back north. Back to my apartment. Back to my own life. The next morning, I called a consumer protection attorney. I explained what my sister-in-law had done. She connected me to someone who specialized in financial privacy law, and he explained that what my sister-in-law had done, using her professional credentials to access my financial data for personal purposes, was a violation of the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, which governs how financial institutions handle consumer information. It wasn't just a fireable offense, it was potentially criminal. I gave him everything I had, my aunt's account of what Kevin had said, my own recollection of the conversation, the timeline. He said we had grounds to file a complaint with the CFPB and to send a formal letter to the credit union's compliance department. We sent the letter. I also contacted an estate attorney about the loan. She reviewed the paperwork and confirmed what I'd suspected. My name had not been validly used. The lender had accepted the property as collateral without getting proper hold or consent. She sent a letter to the lending company disputing the validity of the lien on my share of the property. That process took weeks, but it moved. In the meantime, I went to work. I picked up extra shifts, not because I needed the money, but because I needed to be somewhere that made sense. The hospital made sense. The monitors, the protocols, the patients who needed real help. I ran 3 miles in the mornings. I called my aunt on Sundays. I said no to the 12 texts my mom sent me in January, all variations of "please come home, we need to work through this, your brother is in a very bad place." I know he was in a bad place. He put himself there. The credit union launched an internal investigation within 3 weeks of receiving our letter. My sister-in-law was placed on administrative leave. I heard through my aunt, who heard from a cousin, that she tried to claim she'd accessed my data as part of a routine compliance check, which didn't hold up. Because compliance checks don't involve personal family members, and there was no file number, no business record, no legitimate purpose documented. She was terminated in February. The credit union sent me a formal letter of apology and confirmed that no data I hadn't authorized had been used to extend credit or make any financial decision. They settled with me privately for an amount I'm choosing not to disclose, but it covered the attorney fees and then some. The lender, faced with the estate attorney's letter, agreed to remove my name from the collateral. Kevin was on his own with the $340,000. He had no assets left to leverage, no family member willing to absorb it. The debt went to collections. His credit was destroyed. He and my sister-in-law were still living in the rental house they'd moved into after she lost her job. And from what I heard, they were barely covering rent. My parents didn't fare much better in the ways that mattered to them. My dad coached at a youth baseball league on weekends and was well known in their neighborhood, the kind of person who's always visible at church events and school fundraisers. Who cares about what the neighbors think? When my aunt and uncle quietly stopped spending holidays with them, people noticed. When my dad's brother heard the full story, he called my dad and said things I don't know the specifics of. But my aunt told me my dad cried on the phone. My mom's book club, women she'd known for 20 years, grew cool after one of them, whose daughter happened to know someone who worked at the credit union, connected the dots. Nobody from my immediate family has apologized to me. Not once. My mom sent a text in March that said she hoped I was doing okay and that she loved me, which is not an apology. My dad has not contacted me at all. Kevin sent a single voice message in April, drunk, crying, saying he never thought it would go this far. I listened to it once and deleted it. My grandmother's property is still there. Small lot near the water, scrubby coastal grass. The kind of place that's not worth a lot on paper but matters to the people who know it. I went out there by myself in the spring, just to stand there for a while. The title is clear now: documented, protected. It belongs to both of us technically, but it feels like mine in the way things feel like yours, when you fought to keep them. My nursing license renewed in March without complication. I got a small merit raise in April. I'm applying for a travel nursing assignment in Colorado for the fall, something I've been putting off for years, because I thought I needed to stay close to home in case my family needed me. I realize now that in case my family needs me had become a constraint I'd built my life around, a wall I'd mistaken for a foundation. My friend, who I canceled Friendsmas on, she understood. We did a belated thing in January at her apartment, just the four of us, and it was better than the original would have been. Her chili is legitimately world class, and we watched a terrible Christmas movie and laughed until my stomach hurt. That was a better holiday than any Christmas I can remember from my actual family. I've been thinking a lot lately about what I'd tell someone who's in the spot I was in. Standing at the door of a situation that feels off, wanting so badly for it to be something different than what it is. I think what I'd say is this. You already know. That thing in your chest that tightens when the questions feel too specific, when the smiles feel like they're covering something. When your gut says this isn't about love, you already know. You don't have to ignore it to be a good daughter, or a good sister, or a good person. Knowing doesn't make you cold. It makes you honest. Setting a limit isn't the same as turning your back. I didn't stop loving my brother when I refused to pay his debts. I stopped agreeing to disappear so he could stay visible. That's a different thing entirely, and it took me 29 years and a face full of eggnog to understand it. I'm not waiting for them to come around. I'm not checking my phone on holidays hoping someone will call. I made my peace with who they chose to be that night, in the living room, with the Christmas tree lights still blinking in the background. They made a choice. I made mine. If you're watching this and you recognize something in what I'm describing, that weight, that pressure, that sense that you owe your family something you never signed up for, I want you to know you're not alone in it. And I want you to know that the other side of that pressure is real. It exists. You can get there. You just have to stop absorbing what isn't yours to carry. I've thought a lot about what actually happened that Christmas. Not the surface version, the one where a dad throws eggnog and a daughter drives away, but the version underneath. The one that had been building for 29 years before it finally broke open in my parents' living room. Kevin didn't become someone who commits fraud in one afternoon. He became that person slowly, across decades of being told that his mistakes would be absorbed by someone else. Every time my parents covered for him, every time they redirected the consequences onto me. The responsible one, the dependable one. They were teaching him something. They were teaching all of us something. That some people are meant to carry weight, and some people are meant to be carried. I was category 1. I didn't choose that. It was assigned. What I did choose, eventually, was to put it down. I think about my sister-in-law sitting at her desk at that credit union, logging into a system she had credentials for, and pulling up my financial profile. She had to make an active decision to do that. She had to tell herself some version of a story where that was okay, where the ends justified the access, where family entitlement outweighed someone else's legal right to privacy. That's not a lapse in judgment. That's a collapse in character. And character collapses don't happen in a vacuum. They happen when people have been practicing small justifications for a long time until the large ones feel easy. She lost her job because of what she did. Kevin lost his credit, his house, his public standing. My parents lost the social fabric they'd spent 30 years weaving, the neighbors, the church friendships, the warm reputation that matters so much in a small Texas community. None of that happened because I punished them. It happened because actions have weight, and weight lands somewhere. They made choices that had consequences, and I stopped being the surface those consequences landed on. That's the thing about courage that nobody tells you when you're growing up. It's not loud. Standing in my parents' living room with dairy dripping off my face and saying no clearly, without screaming, without begging. That was the most courageous thing I'd done in my adult life, and it was almost completely quiet. Intelligence told me what was happening. The years of nursing, of reading situations fast and accurately, of knowing when something is wrong before the numbers confirm it, that trained me to see their plan for what it was the moment I opened that envelope. But intelligence alone doesn't act. It takes something else. It takes the willingness to accept that the people you love can be the ones who hurt you most, and to respond to that truth honestly rather than flinching away from it. I'm not the version of myself who drives home at midnight from a holiday dinner and cries herself to sleep, hoping it'll be different next time. I did that for years. I don't do it anymore, not because I stopped caring, but because I understood something. You don't protect people by allowing yourself to be used by them. You protect yourself. And in protecting yourself, you refuse to participate in the system that was keeping everyone stuck. Rachel Odom is doing fine. She's applying for travel nursing assignments in Colorado. She runs in the mornings. She has friends who make world-class chili and watch terrible movies and laugh without agenda. Her accounts are her own. Her name is clear on her grandmother's land. Her door is open to the people who treat her like a person and closed to the ones who treat her like a resource. That's not bitterness. That's just honesty about what I'm worth.